Hey guys, this new Patreon is going to be about creating an environment. I think we're going to go for something like an island aerial kind of view. We're going to just build this all from scratch. So I know that during the poll that I made a while back, one of the most requested things was people wanted more environment stuff. And so I've we're going to go back to that. So that's what this tutorial is going to be about. Instead of just showing you like different Redshift specific techniques and stuff, this is going to be more about, okay, let's combine all the techniques and everything we've learned so far. We're going to start off with some landscape building, and I'll be covering kind of, once we get to it, going over some of the changes that have happened since my initial height field tutorial. Some stuff has happened for Redshift that lets us skip some steps, that gets a little more support for polygon soups, and so that kind of changes everything for us in terms of having to write out textures or anything like that. So yeah, let's just get rolling. So we're gonna just dive right in, I guess. So this is a completely brand new scene. There's nothing in it right now, and we're gonna just go in here and I guess let's just drop something. I guess let's just start off with a file, and we'll just call this our terrain for now, and let's just dive in. We'll get rid of the file sop, and let's just make this a little big, since for now we're not going to really worry too much about the Redshift part of things. And let's just save this out. And so, okay, cool. Let's hit tab HF, and let's just drop down a height field. And cool, we've now got our blank height field here. Right now it's 1,000 by 1,000 meters, and that should be fine. That's plenty. Let's do grid spacing of 1, so our resolution's a little better. And let's move this up. Next SOP, let's drop down a height field pattern. So HF PAT, you look at pattern. And what we're going to do with this node is we're going to just use this to make the foundational shape of our island. So if you're going to think of this thing as a giant island here, so what shape we need to make that with. So when you first use the height field pattern, you just get a bunch of shapes. So there's a star pattern, stripes. We're going to stick to star, and the reason why, it makes a pretty good island-ish looking shape. So that kind of helps to get us rolling. But the problem is right now it's tiling. There's a bunch of them. We don't want that. So we actually don't want it to be tiling, and we just want one. So to get rid of that, and we also, right now, if we zoom in, let's just zoom in. It's like really sharp. Like you could tell this is a what is it, a pentagon looking shape, or it's a star, but it mostly looks like a pentagon. And so right now that's a repeating obvious shape. We don't want that. We're going to switch this up. So you have the shape size. Let's slide this down a little, and you see you could increase it, decrease it. You could adjust the repeating, there's a bunch of parameters basically to work with here that let you could change the shape type to ramp, steps, stripes, etc., etc. And then there's like a blur radius. So as you can see what that does. Obviously the base height's going to change the starting height. We want that at 0, and our height, our maximum height for everything. And yeah, so, but what we need to do first now is we actually need to make it so it's just one big one. So we've got the size slider here. We're gonna, let's move this up to, let's just type in 1,000. That looks pretty good. So now we've got one big base shape to start with, and from here, let's adjust the shape size. And so as you can see, this is just controlling the individual shape rather than the amount of times it's tiled. And so I think for our purposes, let's just do 0.3. That's pretty good. So that's like a big centerpiece or island or whatever you want to, think of it that way, as a as a mass. And so cool. Now we've got that. Let's we could blur the edges more or less. So if we increase it, we start to we get a blurred slope. So let's do something like 41. Yeah, 41 looks good. Okay, cool. And so as you can see, we're starting to build our base shape before we start adding erosion or any of that type of stuff. This will just give you the foundational shape to everything. So if you keep going down, there's some more options here for distortion. And so that's important to just break up the shape that we have. And we'll likely do that right now. And you could also rotate the shape a little bit, as you can see. Maybe we'll rotate it a little bit this way. So it's not, the flat edges aren't the flat edges of our base height field. You could add jitter to move it a little bit, offset it, so it's not perfectly centered. Okay, cool. So now let's distort things. So as you can see, if we turn it off and on, you'll notice it kind of breaks up the shapes. There's different types of noise we could use. We'll just stick to curl. It's fast to compute and it works. The amplitude, let's yeah, 130 looks good. So it's enough. We come in here, you can see that it's flat at top, which is okay because we don't want the entire island to be a mountain, just a point. We kind of want it to flatten out a little bit, and we could combine it with other patterns and stuff and adjust this later. But now we've got the edges are broken up a little bit, so that's cool. Okay, let's test out the element size. So this is kind of like the size of the wavelength of the noise that's going on. Go really big. This looks kind of good. So it's on a little irregular breakup. Maybe let's check out a little smaller. Yeah, it looks kind of cool. So that gives us a random shape to work with for an island. This looks, believable. It's not mirrored or anything like that. So it's a little bit of randomness, and that's what we need. And so, okay, cool. That's a good beginning shape. And what we can do is we could combine this to break up bigger shapes, but I think we'll do that at the end. let's first let's move on to something like let's just do a base erosion, just to kind of HF erosion. And that way we could just kind of see what we get if we erode the island right now a little bit. And this is going to probably take a couple seconds to calculate. So let's see what we get. Oh, and that's why it took a little bit to calculate, because I'm on frame 35. And so this is the base frame 35. This is what it looks like after a little 35 frames of erosion. So if we look at things now, we've got a nice little breakup going on here. The top looks like if there was water raining and it kind of eroded the cliffs and it came down the sides a little bit. So okay, cool. So we start looking at it from a distance. If we were to set up a camera, an aerial view from up here or something, it starts to feel more like an island. And we'll worry about the water. We just make a big plane, I guess. We'll just drop a plane, or a grid, I should say. And we'll come in here and make this grid that big. We can make it bigger, but for now we'll just make it that big. And we'll just transform it. Oops. Transform. And we'll just move it up a little bit from on the y-axis. That's too much. Let's just do one. So that way you can imagine that that'll be our water eventually. And so we could just focus on the island. And we could actually add a color to this, so let's just go to matte and let's just drop a redshift material. And for now, we'll just keep it blue, just for OpenGL purposes. And just to keep it like that, so we can kind of better visualize things. Alright, so now we're back. Let's get back to our terrain. Let's hit Control S so we can save our scene. Cool. That's a base erosion. Let's actually get in here and kind of adjust the erosion strength or the erosion a little bit. I mean, it doesn't look too bad already for a base erosion. It kind of already works. But I don't know. Let's see. Amount, precipitation, debris, simulation, visualization. It's no, I think we're good just for a base of just to get started, I guess. And so next, what we need to do right now, I think like the erosion overall is okay, but what's missing is details on the cliff sides. So to bring that detail in, what we're going to need to do is mask the cliff edges and then distort them or something. So let's make a mask by feature. So HF mask HF mask by feature, and we'll pipe that in. And so if we have this selected now, you'll notice what it's masking or what it isn't masking. So right now we have it masked by slope, which is what we wanted. This actually is already pretty good. I think we can maybe increase it a little. Maybe something like that. So that way the closer to the beach, or the lower bottom doesn't get eroded as much or distorted once we get to it, and the top is not masked either, and so only the cliffs will get influenced really. So okay, this looks already pretty good just from default. Let's maybe do 25. No, 30. Yeah, I think 30 is good. Cool. So now we've got this mask data, and if you don't want to visualize the colors, you could always turn that off. And you'll notice just now we have the island and the mask itself. And so now what we need to do is make a distortion. So HF distort, and what we're going to do is we'll plug this in right here, which is our mask data. So we're getting our mask from our mask that we made, and we're getting our height field data from up here. So now if we select this, boom, we've got, just like that, a nice extra little details going on here on the cliff sides. And as you can see, little by little, it's already starting to kind of come together. Cliffs don't, well, I mean, it depends on the rock and the sediment and stuff, but this is too uniform, I think, for our purposes, so we're likely going to adjust the noise. And so to do that, several things we could do. Let's adjust the amplitude maybe. So this gives us like really jagged noise, but it's obviously too strong. The scaling of it is wrong, and so what we'll do next is adjust the size. So let's actually make it bigger. 200 and yeah, 219 looks pretty good. And so as you can see, in doing this, we kind of already created little like little bays and little pools of water that are coming in, and I mean, just doing this, the distortion really added a lot more detail. So if we're zooming out, you know, and we're looking at our island from the sky, like we're planning to, and once we put stuff on it and everything, and we try, you know, move a camera move or something, it's going to look good. And so this is already starting to come together. What else can we do? I think everything else is okay. There's a little bit of stretching in some spots down here, but that's okay. That's not going to be a problem once we convert it to a polygon soup and it's remeshed. So then it'll just work. So let's save this out again, and let's actually layer up another another chunk, so we get some breakup, so the top isn't as smooth. So our next step, let's do the same thing we did at the top. Let's build another height field pattern. And we'll plug that in back to our original. And let's just build another node. And we'll move this down here. And this secondary clumping will, let's see, because we could visualize them both at the same time, but sometimes it's a little better to kind of just visualize it alone. So let's start this over, and again, you know, we've got the repeating pattern. So obviously, again, to get rid of that, we gotta adjust the scaling and all that stuff, and the element size and whatnot. And so again, I think 1,000 I found to be a pretty good number. 1,000 gives you, like, for the default height field plane, it's a good, like, size, and it just works pretty good. And we'll rotate this a little bit just to kind of see. Let's see what happens. And right now the blur is obviously not enough, so let's crank this up. Let's try 30s. The height, we'll lower it a little bit. And I think that's a good little base, and we should try to combine it now and see what happens, basically. You know, see if it works or not. And let's just drop in a road. Give that a second to compute. Actually, I probably should have distorted it and stuff a little too before eroding it. So let's actually let's come down here. Oh yeah, and the sides is important too. Like, if you notice right now it's 5 sides. You could add more, and that'll what's the word? It'll break up the base shape a little more. For our sides, let's just do 19 or something a lot. So now we've got a lot of variations, and the size is too big. Let's do let's just do that. And the reason is because we want this to break up the middle. That's what this is going to do. This is going to break up the middle of our island. So let's add a little distortion now. And again, we're going to crank up the amplitude, just because we want some randomness. I think 130 is fine. Element size. Let's try this. I don't know. Let's see what happens. So, okay, cool. Now let's erode, and actually we got to recompute the erosion model, because it computed it before we made those adjustments. And let that do its thing. And let's just stick to 35. And okay, cool. So now let's layer these two chunks that we've got. So let's hit HF, layer, height field layer, and we're going to just straight up combine them and see what the results give us. Oh, and instead of replace for the layering, we actually need where's it at? Blend. We're going to blend it between the two. And so right now it's at a 0.5. It's a perfect blend between the two. I don't want that. I think we could stick to more or less 1. So this is too much on one side. Or maybe we can multiply it. Whoa, that's too much. Maybe add them. Come on. Yeah, that's kind of cool, but I think this little chunk looks weird. It's too straight. Switch to a blend. I want to see if that was always there. Oh yeah, it is. It's damn it. Okay, I was hoping this. So this is coming from somewhere. Obviously from this side of the distortion. Trying to think. Let's see if we come all the way back. Well, let's blend a little this way. And let's just start the whole simulation over. Move it forward. Just to see what we get. Yeah, this is the only patch that kind of looks weird to me. So let's go back up to the top and see what's causing that. It's in this area. So it looks like it's this box right here. So to get rid of that, let's give it one more side. Yeah, and let's see if that, oop, what did I just do? What the hell? How did that change the layout? Bam, don't know why it snapped over. Let's just oh, what the hell's going on? Come on. We'll just reset the desktop real quick. Get back in here. And where were we? Let's move that to the side. And okay, cool. Let's rebuild everything and hopefully it that box is hopefully not as prominent as it was before. It's still there, but well, let's see. It's still there, kinda, right here. But I think that's okay from these angles. It's not too obvious. Okay. And let's just make sure this is not causing it. If we look at that, maybe I can increase the height on this. A little bit, and maybe rotate it. No, it's not doing it either. Let's see if this will maybe break up that shape when we get to it. And let's erode again. And let's just leave it at 35. And now that we've combined the two, I think that broke it up a little better. And we have some variations on the cliffs and stuff. Let's maybe push it back a little bit more to the left on the blend. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So from a distance, it's there, but it's not, you're not going to notice it too much from way up here as the camera rotates or something. It's not a problem. Okay, cool. So now we're at this stage. Let's save everything out. We can maybe drop another erosion on top of everything. Just see what we get. Give that a second. I think it's way too strong. Got rid of all the details, so now let's actually kill that. Let's stick to this. I think this is good. Maybe we'll do another distort, but I don't think we really need it. But let's try it anyway. So let's duplicate these. Bring them down here. Let's cut that. And let's plug that in. Let's plug that in. Let's see what we get. That's too strong. But let's see. Let's change our slope. Maybe something like that. And Let's decrease the scale directions. Let's try 0.3 on X and Y. I mean, not X, Y, X and Z. And keep the distortion mostly on Y. Let's try 5. A little bit of distortion. Let's check out the original. I think that might be still too strong. So, what can we do? We can blend between the two, maybe. We could smoothen the radius. Try 3. Let's visualize this mask a little better. Let's mask it by height too. So it only happens around here, maybe. Let's try that. And yeah, that looks okay, I guess. And so let's turn on the erosion visualization just so we can kind of see where the data for debris and stuff is going to eventually show up. And yeah, this looks pretty good. So if we zoom out, cool. We've got this island. We've got, if you look at it from up here, we've got variation. We've got parts that are poking out, submerged, little bays, inlets, smoother regions. So we've got a good amount of variations and stuff. So neat. All right, let's hit Control S. Let's save this out. Let's we don't have to visualize it anymore. Right now, if we middle mouse click this, you'll notice we have all this data. We've got the height, the mask, bedrock flow, flow directions, water, debris, stuff like that. So we could use all this data. And in my original height field tutorial, we wrote out textures. And you still have to do that if you're going to export this. So if you're going to still export this stuff to Maya or whatever, you still have to do that. But if you're just sticking to Houdini, then you don't have to do that anymore, because Redshift supports polygon soups, so that saves us a lot of time and effort. So now all we gotta do is we gotta hit tab. Come on, what's going on? Huh? Why is tab not? There we go. Weird. HF convert, and you'll get the convert height field node. And so what we want to do is, instead of polygons, we're going to convert this actually into a polygon soup, which is a lot lighter. And we could bake the point colors if we want. It's not necessary. For me, I don't bother. Like, I mean, I guess we could use one of those the quick shade nodes and then bake out the points as colors and stuff. But I mean, I don't know. It's whatever. I don't think it's worth it right now. And so we'll just do that. That'll take a second to process. So now if we zoom in here, you've got a bunch of quads. And so the mesh is ready to go. And since it's a VDB, not a VDB, polygon soup, it's ultra light in the viewport and stuff. It just, Houdini likes it over real polygons. And it's because it treats everything as a single point rather than complex mesh. You can increase the density. Let's try. I mean, I think this is already kind of good if we're going to be looking at it from over here. But let's get a little more detail in this. So let's try 1.5. Obviously, the denser you go, the more detail you get, but the heavier it is. My viewport's still pretty good, so maybe we'll go with the full 2. And I think that's as good as the detail's going to get. So maybe we don't need to. Maybe 1.5 was enough to capture. Yeah, I think 1.5 is plenty to capture the details. We could, I guess, up-res the entire thing if we come up to the top and change the resolution here in the grid spacing. But I think this is pretty good of a resolution for, I mean, if you look at it from up here, if you're thinking of the camera, 1080p, 2K, this is plenty. Plus motion, blur, all that stuff. You're going to lose a lot of the detail anyways. And we're going to cover it with plants and stuff. So I think this is plenty good. Okay, cool. So that's step 1. Congrats, guys. You know, I kind of went through the nodes really quickly because I expect you guys to have watched the more detailed height field tutorial. This is kind of this tutorial is going to be more about we're just putting all the knowledge from all the other tutorials together and making a scene. So great, we've got our little base island ready to go. So we'll save this out. And one of the neat things is, because the terrain has all this data, and let's just lock this out so that it's oh, not lock, no, I meant freeze, so that it doesn't have to recompute every time we open this. It doesn't have to compute all this stuff. It's gonna make the file size a little bigger, but that's fine. And so the cool thing about doing it this way, the polygon soup, and not having to export, is because all this data, the point attributes right here, debris, flow, etc., all these points can be accessed. So if we type in HF, and where's it at? Visualize, SOP, paint, patch. I need to move that up a little. HF, mask, clear, mask, blur. Where's it at? Points. High field, mask, blur, mask by feature, mask by object, mask, clear, mask, expand, mushroom, noise, output, point, paint, patch, pattern, project, remap, resample, scatter. Ah, there it is. Scatter. So high field scatter. This lets you scatter points onto the height field, and there's several methods you could use. There's the density and the mask layer. And so the mask layer is basically these attributes here, but before we converted. So it's the data up here. It's height, bedrock, flow, whatever, right? So the idea is we'll actually get a null, and no, let's we want this to go straight in there. And so the idea is that we would make another node. For example, we would where our scattering would happen. And since now we have mops, what we could do is we'll actually use mops to scatter on our terrain, but we're going to load in the data from this null object. So we'll just call this terrain out. And so this is our terrain mesh, but the data for scattering our points that we're going to use will get pull from here. And so if I were to just connect this right now, just so you can kind of see what's going on, and I use, I don't know, flow. I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but yeah, so you can see these points everywhere. All these points are based on the mask or whatever data we're pulling in. We can make more masks if we want ourselves, you know. So if I click mask, right now there's no mask data, so it's just going to select everything. If we try water, it's only a couple spots that are getting I think it's the water where it would collect. And if we try, I don't know, debris. So as you can see, we're getting point data that we could then use as points to scatter objects on. So this is what makes this great. We have all this data already, and so you don't have to worry about it. If you were to export this to another app, then it's a pain, because then you got to deal with all this stuff. So for now, what we care about is this. We just want our mesh for now, but we're going to keep this terrain out. And the reason is because we might branch off to the side and make more custom masks if we need them, like for the cliffs or whatever, right? And that lets us do that. And so, okay, cool. Let's go back up now. So we've got our grid. We've got our terrain, our height field. And let's actually just start a basic setup. Let's get a basic scene going here. So let's hit Control S. Let's go to the Redshift tab. Let's drop down. I guess we'll go with the Redshift sun. Let's just drop that in. Let's pull this up. We'll try something like that. And as you can see, the translation and all this stuff, if we were to just not rotate this or anything, the idea is, the problem with the Redshift sun is that it doesn't do God rays or any of that type of volumetric cool stuff that well, because it's an infinite light. So what I like to do is build a regular Redshift light also. So let's just drop it down. And this light is an actual, just a regular area light. And the reason is because it actually has a distance, so it can calculate the God rays and stuff, the scattering of the volumetric light properly. And so what we're going to do, because the there is a distance still from the sun and whatnot, even though it's an infinite. It acts like all shadows and stuff are parallel. It works better when using one of these for God rays and stuff. I wish it worked like it did in TerraGen or something. Then it'd be awesome. You wouldn't even have to do this trick, but you know, we don't have that option. So what I do is I convert this second light. So we'll call this the redshift sun, or just sun, RS sun, and then this is RS sun volumetric, or volume, and the and we'll change these to like a yellow color, and we'll make them light bulbs. And so this one, we're gonna make this large and all that. We'll tweak this individually. And this light, actually, we don't want to affect our specular or diffuse. So this light's only going to be for volumetric light. It's not actually going to light our objects. That's what the sun's going to do. And for the shape, we'll use a disc. A sphere sometimes works, but we'll just use a disc so we can control the directionality. Or, yeah, the directionality, the spread. And like I said, this is only for our volumetric lighting. And so what we want to do is we actually want our translation and rotation to be paired to this light. And so I'll just copy paste all this there for now, because we're going to just parent it to the other light. Let's copy that. And our rotation. And I know technically I should have zeroed it out into world space and all that, but it doesn't really matter. And so then what we're going to do is we're going to just connect it to each other. Wait a second. That isn't right. Should have parented. Or actually, the redshift sun position doesn't matter because it's a directional light. So actually the only thing that matters is the redshift sun's rotation, right? So I'm thinking, let's just make this 0. And we'll zero this out also. And we'll just copy this parameter, so the rotation, and we'll paste that in as a relative reference for our sun. And okay, there we go. And so now I should be able to just rotate it, and I can move it anywhere I want, but the rotation will make the sun move with it. So that solves our problem. And so what we could do is, all we have to do now is just move wherever our sun is. We just move this relative to it. So like if we had clouds or whatever, the volumetric light will come through here, and our sun, which location doesn't matter or anything, only the rotation matters, will be what's lighting our scene. And so, I mean, I guess just to make things easier, we'll just zero them both out. Why not? And so we'll just make this 0, 0, and we'll just copy that, and paste it as a relative reference. And we'll just do things like this, so that the both lights are always kind of tracking each other. I should probably put it in world space. So by hitting the M key, I can control the position and then rotate the sun, and they're both paired together. And maybe we could eventually drop an HDRI. I don't know. We'll figure it out later. And cool. So let's actually drop in some materials. So let's drop in a Redshift builder. We'll call this water, and this will be terrain. And technically I should probably make another grid for the ground plane, since the ocean's got depth. It's not infinite. The ocean doesn't just not have a ground underneath it. And so let's just say ocean surface. We'll duplicate this, but let's make it bigger. So let's make this 5,000 by 5,000. So something pretty big, so that if the camera's out here, we're not gonna, well, might even have to be bigger than that. Let's do 8,000 by 8,000, just so we avoid the ocean clipping off in the distance. And we'll duplicate this, and then we'll call this ocean ground. And this we want zeroed out, so it'll be lower in the ground. And that shader will be like a dirt shader or something. And okay, I think this is plenty high that we could rotate around. Maybe even drop down like this, rotate, that the horizon looks cool. So alright, and for this, the shader we want, should actually make another one. It's not really as important, so we'll just make this a regular material. We don't need a VOPNet, and we'll just call this ocean floor, since that's technically what it is. And I'll call this the same, floor. And we'll change the material to the ocean floor. And okay, cool. We should assign something to the terrain, another material. So let's assign terrain. Let's go to mats. Let's dive in here. Let's just drop in another Redshift material. Let's plug that in. And let's drop in our Redshift ROP. Let's activate the GI. Brute force. Brute force. Don't really care about anything else for now. I think we'll just use optics because it's fast for look dev. And we'll give this a save and fire up a render. And that should create a camera for us automatically. And let's see what happens. Whole lot of nothing. And the reason is because if we look through our camera, I don't know where we are. It looks like we're underwater, or there we go. And oops. That's why it looks like there's a whole lot of nothing going on. Alright, there we go. Let's see, our horizon. For some reason we don't have a sky. Which is kind of weird. Why we're missing our sky. That does not entirely make sense to me. It's weird. We should be seeing the sky. Let's turn it off, turn it on. Stop that. Let's close it. Sometimes it bugs out. Give it a second. Huh. I don't know why there's no sky. That's pretty weird. It's yeah, that doesn't make sense. There should be a sky there. Everything else is working. On, yep. Environment shader should be on. Horizon blur. Night color, ground color. It's definitely strange. Is the GI not on? Out. Redshift. Oh yeah, GI's on. That's pretty weird. So enable that. Let's actually turn it on for our light. No, that's not doing it. Okay, there's the volume influence. And eventually, once we have objects in the air to cast shadows and stuff, that'll help in that situation. Let's sharpen it by decreasing the spread a bit. That should be okay. The only thing missing is the sky. And I don't exactly know why that is. Yeah, what the hell? Let me see here. Let's dive in. Environment shader, environment VopNet, physical sky, background reflection. Yep, it's all should be working. That's pretty weird. Pretty weird. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure why it's doing that. Huh. See what happens if I just clean that and just to see what happens. I don't think it'll affect it, but I don't know, maybe it will. No. Huh. What the hell? On the weirdness scale, that one's up there. Let's see if I just do a regular render, what happens. Because there should be... Yeah, there should be a sky. Wow. That's definitely strange. I'm gonna... I guess we could try to make another one. I don't get why it's not working, unless this is some sort of bug I just run into. So let's try this again. Nope, no sky. Huh. Okay, that's weird. It's definitely strange. Not exactly quite sure what's causing it. I am using the weird experimental build for the bloom and glare still. And so maybe this was a bug that got fixed recently. I'm not entirely sure. I'll probably reinstall the newer version, maybe. Maybe that's fixed. I don't quite know. But okay, well, let's move on. Let's just work on the ground a bit, or the water. And so we'll just move on to using a water shader. And as you could see, the generic water shader is just too clear. It's blown out. So let's fix that. And so what we're going to do, so we'll actually add some absorption and less refraction / transmission, and see what happens once we try to give that a go. The IOR is fine. So let's see. The height difference isn't that high, so it might not be deep enough, the plane beneath it, but we'll find out right now. So let's see if we can. That's actually not too bad already. And let's or actually, come to think of it, we're going to just kill the redshift sun. We're going to just go with the dome light. The good old classic dome light and directional light combo. It never fails. So let's actually pause the rendering for now, and let's do it that way. It's more efficient, more control. And so let's drop a directional light. We'll call this the RS Sun Direct. And we'll make this yellow. And a little light bulb. And we'll just copy directly a rotation. Paste relative reference. And we'll copy the translation too while we're at it. Copy parameter. Paste relative reference. And that plus making this a directional light. Right now it's an area light. So let's make this distant. And it's way too strong. So let's try a 1. And we'll use that as a starting base. And let's make a dome light too, so we can get some light from other angles. And we might not even need GI for this, actually. It might work fine without it. We'll see how it looks in the end. So let's drop a dome light. And let's move our camera over here. We'll switch that to that. And our dome light. Don't even see it. There we go, just so we can see it. And for our shader, we'll look for an HDR. But I'm going to pause this since we've been recording for an hour and 15 minutes just to save what I've got so far. So give me a second to pause it. Alright guys, I'm back. So yeah, we left off at loading up an HDR. So we're going to load up an HDR we've got right here. and I believe it's super, yeah, it's super overexposed. So we're gonna have to correct that quite a bit. And first let's try just gamma correcting to see what happens. I'm not sure if that actually affects the viewport, come to think of it. Don't think it does. So I think the viewport's kind of just gonna be stuck being this bright. Let me see. Yeah, I don't think the viewport version can be adjusted from here, the OpenGL settings. But now if we pause, or save I should say, and let's load up what we've got. We give this a second to convert the HDR and all that. I think it's pretty big. Yeah, it's super blown out. And for starters, we're going to just disable the sun, just so we could focus only on the dome light. Oh no, actually this is the volume light, so let's keep that on. Disable the sun and work on this. And so right now I think the gamma's what's out of whack. Yeah, and so, well, I think the ground reflects it pretty well, so we'll be able to kind of figure it out. Let's adjust that down. This might not be too bad actually already. Let's see what it looks like in the sky. Oh no, it's still super blown out. I probably should edit this in Photoshop, because from the looks of it, yeah, it's really blown out. So let me pause this again and load it up real quick and edit that. Okay, did a quick little edit on this. Let's make sure. There we go. Okay, now it's gamma corrected back down to a much more real exposure. The can always crank it up and whatnot. I think that's too much already. I think that's enough. We'll always be able to tone map and do stuff like that anyways. And so now let's where's the sun located? I believe the sun's straight ahead right here. So what I think I'll do is rotate the dome light. Maybe something like that. And now we'll turn on the direct light again. And I'll probably have to let's make the dome light a different color just so I can see. See which one it is a little faster. And the volume light, I'm gonna move because it's too close, so I think I'll pull it back a bit. So maybe something like that. Let's play around with the direct light a bit. Let's maybe pull the volume light a little lower in angle. Yeah, I think that'll do. And let's drop this to 0. Let's darken our... I think our dome light's still too strong. Okay, that's all right. Eventually we could adjust our exposure, maybe saturate things a little, and all that stuff, and we'll deal with that when the time comes, when we need to properly adjust this, you know. And then we have all the neat bloom and all that type of stuff. But we'll move over to linear and throw on a LUT or something. And ground control. Something like that. And we'll just mess around with this at the end. We do need to increase our intensities though. So let's go to out, our Redshift ROP. And we'll also adjust our volumetric fog and stuff in a little bit. And under settings, underneath, where's it at? Sampling, no. Oh yeah, sampling, filtering. We need something higher, like 20. That'll just give us more intense, pure whites. What else? Our camera resolution right now is a little weird, so we'll change that to something more cinematic. And there's a pretty neat guide on the internet you can look for that explains all the formats, all the film formats, the resolutions, the aspect ratios. 2:40 is, you know, pretty classic. So where that's at is right here, 2:40. This is kind of the 239, 2:40, as everybody just calls it, 2:40. It's kind of like the film classic widescreen. It's not super widescreen. It's just right. So if you want a 2:4 aspect ratio at 2K, you just come down here, and that's 2048 by 853. So we're actually going to go with that. So let's do 2048. Oop. Yeah, 2048 by 853. And I probably should have stopped rendering. Uh-oh. Looks like we got a crash, guys. So I'll reload that up. Give me a minute. So, unfortunately, Redshift did not like it when I changed the camera resolution in the middle of the IPR. So, note to self to try to pause the IPR before you start changing camera resolutions, because it might not like it. And so here we are. We're back to adjusting our island. Right now, I think the light is obviously still way too close, so we're gonna end up having to move that out of the way. And so if we zoom in here, our volume contribution is probably way too strong also on this, and or just the intensity. So could also be the scale. Let's drop the intensity to 1000. So it's a little more subtle. We'll scale it up a little bit, even though the what makes God rays and stuff like that and caustics work better is the light source is, like the point of light is smaller. So I might actually not scale it that way, because I might lose definition later. But let's maybe increase the intensity just to 1300. I think that's good. And our direct sunlight, maybe we can do a 2. Let's try 1.5. And our dome light can maybe increase the exposure a pinch. So let's try 0.2. That's cool. And so might move the light a little bit further. I actually like this camera view right here, so I think I'm gonna duplicate this camera for now, just to save that position. and we'll save our scene. Just keep that as backup, and we won't mess with this camera. We'll just keep this over here somewhere, or over here, and we'll just call this IPR cam. And this will be our render cam, because I like this angle. Where were we? Let's unhook from there, and let's zoom out a bit and just see where our sun. Let's push that back a pinch. Somewhere right there. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And I think our camera focal length is okay. 50, 35, you know, that range is pretty good for something that you're shooting from a distance. Let's actually see how 35 looks. I think we could start our animation at 35 and maybe pull in to 50 and have a slow rotation around, and we might get something pretty cool with that. So okay, that's something to just keep in mind. Yeah, so now let's work on our water a little bit, our water shader. The water's perfectly smooth, so let's adjust that. And the ocean ground is gray. We're gonna switch that up to like a dirt, which will darken our ocean considerably. And let's start working on the water a little bit. So step one, I think, would be we need some noise. So let's drop in some noise, an RS noise, and we're gonna throw this into a bump. And let's scoot this over. And I'm not really too worried about the displacement or anything like that, because at this distance it's just not going to matter. You don't need displaced waves and stuff like that. If you look at aerial footage, you can't really make out that kind of detail. You can just see specular and breakup on the surface, so it's not smooth like this. So we'll plug that in here, and actually let's plug in a ramp just so I can control it a little bit more. And we don't have a UV, so we'll just do Alt. And we'll plug that in to our bump. And so right now, probably can't notice anything in there. I don't think so, at least. Let's do a fixed scaling, because IPR is half resolution, so we'll do 150 just to get a little more res. See if we can spot any details, maybe 200. And there is a little bit of displacement, or not displacement, bump mapping, but it's not enough. And so to, I think, better visualize what our bump is doing, we're gonna scoot this over. Let's hit Shift S, and we're gonna just plug in our ramp directly just to see what's going on. And so right now it actually looks like there's nothing going on. So let's see. Yeah, it pretty much looks like there's nothing there. That's kind of weird. Let's see. Just the min max, the noise, fractal coordinates. Let's try the scale. Does not look like anything is happening, is it? Is it even assigned? Let me make sure that it's even a shader. Oh no, yep, it's there. Okay. Huh. Let's jump back in here. Let's check out the ramp. And let's just pinch the ramp together so we can just have really high contrast. It doesn't look like no, actually this isn't the scale, this is the time scale. Oops. This is the scale I'm looking for. Let's try 100. Nothing. Let's plug that back in. Let's try 1. Nothing. Let's try 1,000. Nothing. Strange. Let's pause that for a second so we don't keep trying to render, and let's just drop a UV on the surface, just a basic projection. I just want to make sure it's not some weird UV issue. UV project, orthographic, and let's come back to the material, and let's quick mark that so we can come back, and let's save. Let's reload. Where were we? Okay, noise going in direct. Why is this not creating anything? I'm gonna have to like check why this is acting this way. If I zoom in here, because it should be huh. That's weird as hell. Okay, that's, I don't get it. Why is the noise not? The bump should be functioning fine. Yep. Scale, offset. I should be seeing something actually. I don't know why I'm not. It's not visualizing anything on the surface. Let me see. If I drop this in, plug this in here. Yeah, I'm getting that. So why am I not getting anything here? Super strange. Fractal, yep. Min max. Yeah, black, white, complexity. Why is it not working? What's going on here? This is not normal. Well, gotta say, I am lost as to why it's not doing anything. And I just hit reload. Maybe the nodes aren't read in, or I don't know, something's going on. Okay, something else is happening now. So I think the nodes were not reading or something. I don't know. Let me see. Drop this to 10. Nope. Drop this to 1. Nope. Wow, something really strange is happening. And I don't exactly know what it is. It's changing color. but the noise itself, it's probably something to do with the scale, because we're working in a huge scale here to make these islands. That's my guess. But I really don't know. Why it's doing this. I'm gonna have to pause this and think about it for a while. And then I'll keep going once I get some ground, because I have no idea what's causing this right now. Give me a second. I'll be back. Alright guys, after spending a couple minutes investigating, opening up a new scene and trying to see what was the cause. So it was what I suspected. It if we come in here, and actually let's open the render view again. It was due to the scale of the scene. See, and so this is something to keep in mind when you're working with the height field node. You're working massive. I mean, we're talking about a huge scene. And so what it came down to was the scale on this had to come down to like 0.01 or something. Yeah, so as you can see now the noise is visible. And so let's now use a ramp, and now we could start tweaking things. So let's drop that in here. And use Alt. And so actually we don't need the UV set on the object. We could just kill that. And let's go back to the mat. And so what was happening was the object scale is just monstrous. We're talking, I think, what was it, like just the height field is 1,000 by 1,000. So the ocean's 8,000 by 8,000. And so yeah, and that's meters in Houdini. So that basically was huge. It was too much for the ramp to show up. I mean, not the ramp, the noise. So, but now we could adjust things a little better. And so let's try 0.03. Still too big. 0.5. And for the noise, actually, let's try a complexity of 4. Let's add a little distortion. Eventually, once we do animate this, we could use some noise, some time noise. If it's like a constant scaler, we could adjust it, but we'll deal with that later at the end. I think this will be a 2-part tutorial, since it's a lot to try to condense into one tutorial. And let's just try to tweak our noise a little bit. less distortion. Let's check out turbulence, just to see how it looks. No, I think we'll stick to fractal. And let's try 0.1. Let's just see how smaller. No, let's even go smaller, 0.5. That might start working. Let's try 0.7. Let's maybe push this a little bit further left. And now let's pass this back through our bump. Let's move this way. And let's see what happens if we increase our bump a bit. And let's probably look through this without being denoised, because the denoiser is probably going to kill some of the specular. Let's try 5. Let's just try 25 just to see what happens. Might be way too much, but we won't know. And let's crush this a little. So we get sharper shifts and maybe a little bit of noise just to break it up even further. And let's do -0.5 and 0.5 to remap our blacks to dip down. Let's try 0.5 on the overall scale. Let's see how we do. It looks like it's there. It's just subtle. And let's use GGX. And let's maybe bring in some refraction color. I know it should technically it should be clear, but we're doing ocean water. We're not doing a glass cup. Weird. It's not. Seems like it's not adjusting. see. Let's keep dispersion off. A little bit of roughness, just to simulate the choppiness of the water. And now crank up the scatter. Drop the absorption a little bit. Maybe we could shift this a little. Now let's go tropical. Something like that. That might be a little too green, actually. Let's go a little further back to the blue. Scatter coefficient. Let's see how that looks. That looks okay. Let's save this out. So what we could do, if we hit H, just check out the composition. Probably need to scatter some other objects. Maybe build another island or something, or just duplicate this one, rotate it around, put it down this way. Probably be a good idea. Let's actually do that right now. Let's pause that. Let's just duplicate the terrain. Give it a second. Slide it over. Maybe try that. This looks kind of good. Let's save that again. Let's actually do a full render. Let's just see what we get in terms of full resolution. The 240 2K. Give that a second. I know the settings aren't that high. Actually, I probably should have crank that up before rendering. Come in here. Definitely some weirdness going on. I think that's from the bump map. So let's just drop this down to 5. And let's crank up the settings actually, so we can get a cleaner render. Settings. Let's do 128 for max. 0.003 for adaptive error. Max subsamples. Let's do 16. 16. Goss of 2 is fine, I think. Overrides. Let's just do 256. 256. 256. 256. 256. And the GI 256. Probably needs 512, but whatever. And we'll start tweaking the volume in a bit. But let's just see what we get now. Give that a second. Zoom in here. Seems like there's some weirdness still going on from the bump map, but you know, we could tweak and adjust that later. Right now it's more about, okay, we're laying out the terrain and seeing kind of like the angle we want, the lighting we want, the light direction. And I think all we got to do next is maybe scatter some rocks or something in some areas. Let's check this out, flip it. I think maybe it's a little dark. We could probably increase the f-stops a bit. Punch up the saturation. Yeah, I think this is a good base. What else? Let's just make the 0, 1, and a 1. I want to see if what's causing these weird spots is the bump map. I think it is, but I'm not 100% sure. Might be the scale. Ah, yeah, the denoiser's kind of killing it too. Okay. Let's come in here. Let's drop the f-stop a little bit. So right now, I think the bump is still way too strong. It's too big. So let's push this to the side a little, just smoothing it out. And let's make this 0.7 again. Now let's drop the intensity to like 0.5. Now let's re-render. So yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of that render and re-rendering. But I think you guys kind of get an idea of where this is heading already. There's quite a lot of fireflies too. That's due to the max subsample intensity. I could probably crank that down a bit. Maybe to 10 or something. Let's try out. Oh wait, no. Yeah. Here. Let's try 10 and 10. Yeah, now we have less fireflies and weirdness going on in the water from a distance. There's still quite a lot in the non-denoised version, but optics does a pretty good job getting rid of it. So we'll keep it on for now. Cool, I think for our next steps we could focus on maybe the terrain a little bit, shading the terrain just a bit. Oops. And like I said, this is going to be a two-part series, so because it's a pretty long process as it is. So I think I'll be bring in some VDB clouds next. Actually, I should probably do that next, just so we can figure out the lighting setup before going a little further. Yeah, I think I'll do that. So let's bring in some VDBs. Another thing to keep in mind is once we have motion blur and bokeh and everything activated, a lot of this stuff's going to be blurred out, or not as sharp as you think it would be. So let's bring in some VDBs. So let's go up to here. Type in file. Cloud. (001), and we'll load it up. Let's see here. Should probably put them in the hip folder so I don't have to reorganize this later. So I'll do that right now. And we'll load this up. And we'll transform this because it's way smaller. Again, the whole terrain units thing. I mean, I guess I could shrink everything down, but why bother? Let's just keep it in the large scale units. And this is way too small still, so it's 100. Let's try 200. This is probably way too much density. But, let's play around with it, see what we get. Let's just try this. See what happens. What else? Let's add an object parameter tag on this. So just so it's on the I don't think this is animated, so we'll just probably do a slow move like that or something. What else? Put that back to 0. Let's add a shader. Let's come in here. Builder, Redshift Material Builder. Get an RS volume. Drop that into the volume section. Let's Let's drop a quick mark so we can come back to this real quick. And let's select our cloud material and hit the 1 key, come back. Now let's IPR this. See what happens. This is just an entire cloud blanket to save time rather than laying out clouds, but it might be, from the looks of it, it's too dense right now. So let's drop the absorption quite a bit. Let's drop the shadow density. I think that's still way too intense. So this is 0 to 100. Zero to 50. .05. Let's move it around, I guess. Might be too big, too in the way. Too close to the camera. Could be a lot of things. Shrink it down. Worst case scenario, we'll have to lay out our own hero clouds and stuff, but you know, let's try to cover as much ground as we can using one of these to save time. Yeah, it's a little too uniform, so let's go back to this. Slide it this way. This looks a little better. Maybe a little more to the right. There's that. Oh, there it is. A little widget. Let's check out what we got. I think this will work a little bit better. We could maybe just bring in a couple hero clouds or something. Pull it down a little. Oh wait, that's too much. Push it. Let's see what we get. Yeah, this looks cool. It might be a little still too dense, but let's hit the one key. Let's drop the absorption a little. Actually, no. Let's try 0.6. Let's keep absorption up, but then we'll increase the scatter. And decrease the shadow density scale. No, it's too much. Okay, backtrack. Retreat. Let's go back to where we were. 0.1. And drop the scatter down a bit. Let's do 75 for the old max density. I think this is okay right here. And cool. We could probably reuse that shader and bring in another cloud, maybe a hero cloud, to break up these areas somewhere. So let's do that right now. So let's just pause that for a second. And we'll move this to its own little section. We'll just call this the clouds. And let's just duplicate this. But we're going to use another. So we'll kill this transform. And we're going to use another VDB. It's way down here. And we'll transform this. I mean, technically, if you wanted to do this right, you would art direct every cloud, and you would only use this as like a fog or something, like a really subtle effect. But you know, we're not making a movie right now. You know, so we're just this is a course, a training course. We're not going all that hardcore, but you'll know some of the techniques at least. And we're gonna rotate this around this way. I think if we could break up this corner up here, some clouds, it would look kind of cool. So let's try that out. And it should have the shader already assigned since I duplicated it. This one's kind of annoying. It's I could see too much of it, so I think we'll try maybe point cloud. Oh well, won't visualize anything, but or a bounding box, so we know it's there. And I mean, I might end up just getting rid of it. You know, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how things turn out. And let's because if this cloud in the corner works better, I might be able to make a few of them, duplicate it, move it around and stuff. Let's actually just do a full render. Give that a minute. Once we get to shading the terrain, I think next the next tutorial will cover shading the terrain and scattering stuff. So we'll be scattering the trees that we've made in other tutorials, and we'll be making, maybe I think we'll make some rocks. We'll use like a Houdini rock generator or something, like an HDA that someone's made or something that's free out there, or we can make our own if we need to. And we'll scatter some rocks on the beaches, on the shores, and we'll just start to lay this out a little more. I'm probably, once we're kind of happy with this today, I'll probably end up painting this a little over it in Photoshop myself, just to kind of visualize the layout. I recommend you guys, if before you guys just start bashing stuff together like this, grab a Sharpie and a piece of paper and just start drawing little thumbnails. A good idea is in Photoshop, make like a dimension like this, like a 2:40 aspect ratio, and just print out a bunch of them on a sheet of paper and print out stacks of them. And then when you're, you know, trying to come up with a composition or something, you could just start scribbling in shapes with a Sharpie or a brush pen, whatever, right? And that'll help you figure out a composition ahead of time, so that when you dive in and actually start building stuff and laying it out, you kind of already have an idea, and then you can build off of that. Because I know a lot of 3D artists don't have that background, and so I come from painting and concept art and stuff too, so I think about composition and stuff, and I think that's really important. It's not about just making the most realistic photo of a render. It's more about pulling the viewer in and getting the eye of the viewer in, and everything else comes secondary. The composition and the storytelling are the most important, and I think a lot of people miss that are only 3D artists. And so it's important that, you know, you guys do that on the side. And so I think I'm going to end up rendering one of these out and just painting over it in Photoshop to kind of just get some colors down and stuff to just help me figure it out before I waste another couple hours putting it all together, you know. And so right now the it looks like the shader for these clouds was fine, but it's too light on this one, so I'm gonna have to make a new one. So but let's just flip it and see how it, I think this will be cool here. It looks like it's gonna be nice. So let's do that. Let's really quickly come in here and let's duplicate this. And we'll just call this 02. And I'll put that on. Oops. That's the dome light. I'll put that on this object here, so we'll make a new shader. Let's IPR it. And I think all I'll do is just increase the density. I'll remap the density range. So instead of 0 to 100, it'll be like 0 to, I don't know, 25 or 50. We'll see. Let's try 25. I gave it a little more density, but it's still not enough. Let's try 0 to 1, the original density scale. I think that's a little too much. Let's try 10. And let's add 0.5 absorption just to see what we get. So right now it's dark. So it's too dark. But let's see if we can get the scattering up. Let's actually just crop this area in so we don't have to re-render all this. Drop the shadow density a pinch. And let's try 5. I think that's too sharp, too dense on the edges. So I'll see if I can maybe remap this. And eventually I'll probably remap the color so it's not just black and white, because I kind of want a little bit of gray, a little, you know, different variations in here. But right now it's more about just getting the feel down and then adjusting shaders and all that to that level will come next. So first let's slide this over a bit. And instead of linear, let's go with the B-spline. Let's drop the second point a little bit down. bring it up a bit. A little bit more. That's okay. Let's get back to point 1. And let's move that this way. That was too far. Let's move it a little further back. Now let's go back to, let's keep it at default there. Let's do a 0.2 absorption. And let's drop the scatter. Right now it's way too much. I think 3.2 is okay. Let's try 3 here. I think this is, since this is a cirrus cloud, it'd have to be way higher. I think I'd only see cumulus in this area. But let's lift it up and see what happens. We can adjust its location a bit. Right now its density isn't matching either. So let's get in here. Let's crank this up to 30. There we go. Okay, it's looking nicer. I think this I want to kind of push away more to the right now. So let's do that. Let's select that. Let's rotate that. I think another hero cloud right here might help. Or we can entirely get rid of it actually and just throw in separate hero clouds and completely art direct this, but let's see what we can do. Let's pause the render. And I think I'll just keep this as a bounding box. It's lighter on the viewport. Okay, let's load up another cloud. And let's move that somewhere over here. Yeah. Let's see what we get. And as you guys can see, it's kind of, you just start building your puzzle pieces, you know. The once you guys, that's the whole, that was the whole point of me trying to show you guys in the other tutorials how to build your assets. So the idea is once you've built, you know, 20, 30, 40, whatever trees, and they're all shaded, and you've built some rocks, and you've built some clouds and all this stuff. Once you have all these assets, it's really about just like a Lego game. You're bringing in your assets, you're assembling your shot, you're playing around trying to see what you can get, you know. And that's really it's all about. And I think I'm going to actually use just generic OpenGL lighting, just because that's a little faster on the viewport also. And this actually is starting to look kind of good. Probably just need another hero cloud down here. Let's rotate the shot. Yeah, I think one more hero cloud will do it. So let's pause that, and we'll just jump back up. We'll make another duplicate, bring it down. We'll use another cloud. And if you guys don't have time to obviously make all these assets and stuff, you can buy them. There's, you know, $10 or whatever. Like some of these clouds are from, I forgot his name, but I'll put it in the description when I upload the video, and you can buy his cloud pack for like $10 or something, you know, and it's tons of clouds, and you'll have plenty of clouds to use, and you know he already did all the work for you, so. You know, you could do that. You could make your own, like I showed you, which is good if you need a specific look or shape. Obviously, I want you guys to learn how to do that. But, you know, that's why they make mega scans and stuff like that. It's so that you guys can buy it and not have to make it all from scratch. But having the knowledge of how to do that from scratch is really important, I think. So yeah, let's dive in here. Let's move this around. Let's rotate this way. I think would be pretty good. shrink it a little. And let's see what we got. Let's actually save this out now. So as you can see, the scene's starting to get complicated. So I recommend, that's why, naming convention. Always name stuff well. Start using these little sticky group things. Once you start getting a lot of assets, it's going to get confusing. So it's a good idea to keep that all in mind. Let's go with the final render, because I think I'll be wrapping up part 1 of the tutorial pretty soon, and part 2 I think will be all about scattering our trees and shading our terrain, and then we'll be doing a camera move, and we'll add a little bit of movement to the clouds, or we might not even have to. If the camera moves good enough, it'll work. And taking all that stuff into Nuke or whatever, if we need to. I mean, if it's good enough to go from there, we might not even have to do that. And like I said, I'm probably gonna paint over this a little, just loosely, just to kind of think about the layout and composition and stuff. But I think I could, once we get more rocks and stuff placed around, and I think we'll get a better idea of where this is going. I might maybe extend the island down this way more, like more of a terrain, build a completely new one instead of just the cheating duplicate rotate. I might make another one using the same techniques that we used already. It's super easy. But we'll see. I think so far we've got a pretty good base, a foundation. I think the lighting, the composition's pretty cool. And once we get some movement in here, even better. I personally like it this way more now, but that's probably because I've been staring at it this way for so long. But I think this way is going to be the final direction we take. I don't like how this turned out right here. I wanted something maybe more like this, some streaks, just to give us compositional direction to point the eye this way, because our focus is around here. So I think I'm gonna jump in here. I think I'm gonna get rid of this one, and we're gonna reuse another VDB. So I think we'll reuse the this one. Maybe we'll shrink it down. and we'll flip it. And maybe we'll rotate it a bit. See what we get if we do this. Let's just do full resolution so we can see what's going on better. Can't really see it, so let's kill the render. We're gonna move things this way. So this area is a bit more visible right here. And this will probably be the last render I do on recorded. And I'll end up working on it a little bit more in terms of, like I said, in Photoshop, I might paint over it stuff. I might adjust the water shader a little bit just to get a nicer fall off. Fall off or transition right here as things get deeper. The can maybe also drop the f-stop a little and increase the Reinhard factor a pinch. saturate everything. Keep it saturated. I like things a little saturated. And in the end, we might end up up-resing this terrain. I'm not sure. I don't know. You know, at the end of the day, maybe once it's textured and everything's on top of it, you might not even notice. So it might not be a point to it, but it's worth maybe looking into. Yeah, cool. So I think this just about covers it. This is a great start, you know. I think we're only 2 hours or something into this project, and we've already got a pretty cool image, you know. This could almost be like a glacier or something, you know. Like something from the Arctic. Obviously this blue this light blue wouldn't work in that situation, but you already kind of get a vibe of this is what the terrain looks like. Maybe we'll add more terrain over here, or another little island, or we need to scatter some rocks or some stuff. Then once we scatter trees, or maybe we could make this ice, actually, now that I think about it, and maybe we'll just scatter only a couple trees in certain spots. And I don't know. You know, I haven't thought about it, so we're kind of just winging it and having fun. But yeah, hopefully you guys kind of learned some new stuff, like the polygon soup technique, where you don't have to save the textures out anymore. All that data's there. I didn't really get to use it too much because that's what we're going to use to scatter points with. So I'll be covering how we use that and the user data node and stuff to use that for the shading in the next tutorial. But just so you guys know, if you guys already kind of know some of this stuff, you'll know now that you could just use the poly soup. And so yeah, this is like I said, our base foundation, and we're going to keep building this up. And in the end, you know, we'll animate the shot. We'll have a nice little zoom or something, and we'll rotate around or something. We'll do something. And but yeah, hope, like I said, thanks again, guys, for all the support for my Patreon. We'll continue this project in the part 2, and like I said, I'll probably maybe tweak the water or something. I don't know. I haven't decided yet what I want to do with this. I kind of like, now that I thought about it, the ice or something, or snow would be kind of cool. So instead of tropical, so maybe I'll look up some references to see what I don't know, like a terrain might look like somewhere closer to the Arctic or something. And so there'll be still foliage and rocks, and we'll scatter some stuff on it. But yeah, I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to go with that instead of jungle. I don't think I've done a shot like that before, so I think it'd be kind of cool, something snow related. But yeah, like I said, thanks again for all the support, guys. I look forward to working on this piece again, and look forward to seeing any cool stuff you guys might be working on that might be related to environments or terrains or anything like that. So thanks again, and have a good one. Bye.